Hello.
GM. Karen, how are you doing this morning?
Yeah, good. Welcome back to episode 9.
9. Wow, amazing. I hope everyone's had a great past week. We have a great episode today. We're going to get right into it right now, I guess. Let's start.
Yeah.
First, Karen, what is the GM show?
Yeah, I mean, this is we just had like a reveal. The reveal was great, and we have a lot of great feedback from the community. And I saw people are like basically creating their own trades as well, which is so creative. We're seeing all of this great art coming out. So thanks to the community, and I really enjoy the art. So keep it coming.
Yeah, the captain's reveal this past week is another big reveal from a big collection in the NFT world. And it's good that it went so smoothly for you guys. Any special things you want to kind of shout out to some of the things? I've seen so many different versions of the captains. You know, there's a reveal there with a female and a male version, and you can add different traits to it and things like that. I've seen so many different art things. Have you seen anything special that you thought, whoa, this is super cool?
I love the tattoo ones. I love the Sailor Moon. People turning their own into like Sailor Moon, and you can turn it into female or male. So play with your dashboard. You'll be able to like play around with it. And I saw some great art coming out, which is amazing. They're doing their own traits. So hopefully we can include some of the creators' traits as well in the upcoming traits pack. So we can have also like shout out to all the creators as well. So that's like exciting for the next couple of weeks.
That's great. I just want to quickly also say that my last week was super crazy over there at Collision. We had a couple of parties, Memeland related parties out there, and I met a lot of the listeners to GM Show that were based in either in Toronto or came out to Collision. So that was amazing to see. Everybody was very excited about the reveal as well. So it was very cool. I know you do a lot of these in live person kind of meetups with other communities around Asia. You've been to Singapore and Hong Kong and doing things like that. So it's great to see it. So will you be traveling at all in the next little while to do stuff like that? Or are we waiting for Token to do the big travel?
We're waiting for Token 2049. So we'll be in Singapore in September. So you get to see us.
Awesome. Okay. Actually, I should have played this before we got into talk about actual NFT stuff, but let's just quickly throw this up here.
On the GM show is not investment advice. We may or may not have ownership interests in the projects we are talking about, but this is not investment advice in any way, shape or form. And this is not Sir David Attenborough.
All right.
Sir David. Yeah.
Sure, we have that. But that put up. So the GM show, the ABCs of GM show are always the same. We're Asia focused, builder friendly, and cool vibes only. And I thought let's just get right into it this week. We're very excited to have. Actually, is this the first builder that's based in Asia, like Singapore? I think it is. So we're bringing on the co-founder CEO Nansen, Alex Svanovic. He has over 10 years of experience in data science, management consulting, and crypto. His academic background is in AI and machine learning. He is the CEO of Nansen, driving the growth and adoption of the blockchain data analytics firm to provide crypto traders, hedge funds, institutional investors, and VCs with insights into crypto markets. He's based in Singapore. He used to live in Hong Kong. He's from Norway. Let's bring him out. Let's welcome Alex to the show.
GM.
Hi, Alex.
Hello. How's it going?
It's like you're going into the MMA fight.
It's getting like sweaty here.
Yeah.
Just watching it. Yeah.
Alex, let's start off. Let's just jump right into it. You just told us before we went live, you spent a time in Hong Kong before moving to Singapore. Maybe talk, and then you came from Norway. Talk a little bit about your journey from Europe over to Asia.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's actually, I'm not going to go into all the details for the different countries I've lived in, but I left Norway, where I was born, in Bergen on the West Coast. When I was, I think, 20 or 21, moved to Italy. That was the first country I lived in when I moved abroad. Then spent time in different countries in Europe, like the UK. I studied, did my master's, started my first company there. I worked a little while as a management consultant in Paris. I was a data science manager in Barcelona. And then my first job in crypto was in Hong Kong. So that was 2018 that I moved over to Hong Kong. I actually joined an ICO funded startup at the peak of the last bull cycle, or the one before the one we just had. And then unfortunately got laid off at the end of, like at the bottom of the last bear market, along with my team and everyone else. But it was a blessing in disguise, because at the end of that 9-month period after that, we ended up co-founding Nansen. And one of the guys I co-founded it with was someone I had hired for that company in Hong Kong. So I have really good memories from having been in Hong Kong in 2018 and 19. It was an amazing time.
Amazing. And then, so how did you end up moving from Hong Kong to Singapore then to build the business? Yeah, so
I moved back to Barcelona in 2019, 2020. And then we had just started building Nansen. I think the first lines of code for Nansen were written on the way back from Hong Kong when I was in Tokyo, of all places. And I started building it with my two co-founders, Lars and Yevgeny, who were based in Oslo and in Bangkok at the time. So it was kind of a remote first endeavor from the very beginning. We spent 6 months building it out. As I was actually like living a pretty nomadic life. It was in Tokyo, I was in Bali for a little while, I was in Taipei, and then eventually made it back to Barcelona. Then COVID hit, March 2020, as we all remember. And we launched Nansen about 1 month into COVID. And interestingly, it was incredible timing, because a lot of people were just stuck at home looking at DeFi, trading tokens. And so this led to the infamous DeFi summer in 2020. And that's kind of what kickstarted Nansen's growth. We launched our landing page in April 2020. We got our first paying customers literally the day we launched the landing page. And then we just organically, grew the product, the company, and myself and my co-founders were able to, go from having this as a side project to making it our main endeavor over the next 6 months. So I think it was August or September that year we incorporated the company in Singapore. Up to that point, it was all going through my own personal consulting firm that was incorporated in Hong Kong, actually. And then after we had set up the company in Singapore, later, about 6 months after that, I decided to actually move back to Asia, because I love living in Asia. I love working here, and I think in many ways Asia represents the future. So I moved back to Asia, but this time to Singapore in February 2021. I've been here 2.5 years in Singapore, and I love it. It's a great place.
Amazing. Okay, we're going to get into that a little bit later, because I think that's something very exciting to discuss. And we were just touched upon it, and what cities are best for building Web3 companies. But so did Nansen start off, and from what your original idea was to today, it's an analytic dashboard to track wallets and what they're doing in crypto, DeFi, and NFTs. Has that been the what it started off, and is it still the same thing today?
Yeah, it has evolved, definitely. And I would say that the ambition and the scope has continuously grown as we've grown the company and we've had more users and more customers. Initially, it was intended to just be a very kind of simple API product where you could input an address and then get information about that address back, because we saw that this was a big gap in the crypto industry, that many companies were looking at on-chain data, but they very often had no idea what the different entities behind the addresses actually were. And that was holding us back in terms of understanding what was happening on chain. So we figured, why don't we try to solve that problem, where you can just get more information about, who is behind an address, like what is this address? Instead of just seeing 0x123 in Etherscan, you could see, hey, this is Alameda, or this is Binance, or this is some major crypto fund, or an NFT influencer, or what have you. So that was the impetus, right? And we figured, since we had a lot of data experience, machine learning experience, and so on, we figured that we could do a good job at solving this problem at scale, because you have hundreds of millions of blockchain addresses, so you can't just manually sit down and try to tag all these addresses. That was the initial scope. But then when we took it to early customers, we found out that the API is useful, but that's actually, it makes it pretty hard for people who are non-technical and so on to use. And so we decided, why don't we just build out this into a more end-to-end analytics product, where people actually also get the transactional information, useful charts, aggregations, where we make use of these labels. And so it grew into becoming more of a full stack analytics platform. And the initial focus in terms of a customer segment were the investors in crypto. And that is still, I would say, the core customer segment that we have. But we've since then also expanded out to support other crypto teams in Web3 and in our industry. So we now work with companies like Coinbase, OpenSea, Binance, the Arbitrum team. We actually helped them design their airdrop. So it's also become a product that's useful to better understand your ecosystem, your token holders, and the users of your protocol or your blockchain. And so it's quite exciting to see how this has grown into become a more of an analytics platform that can be used for not just investors, but also builders and crypto teams out there.
Yeah. I'm looking at the dashboard now, the hot NFTs by volume in ETH, just seeing what the ones they're still the same ones that are always there, but it's good to see the captains in
I see
there.
the captains there.
Yeah.
I see the captain sitting there. That's cool in the top 10, which is awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah.
This is kind of, it's funny because that page is one of the pages that I check every day. It feels a bit like similarly to how I would go to like CoinGecko to see, how the markets are doing. I like going to NFT Paradise to see what are the NFT collections that are trending right now. And then you can go down the rabbit hole from there, right? You click through on captains, you can see the holders, you can see lots of different information about each collection, which is really fun. I kind of like one way I think about Nansen as a product is that it's the only product that allows you to get full resolution. It's almost like, think of Google Earth or Google Maps, where you can zoom out and you can see the macro, like we're looking at on that ranking, but you can keep going deeper, and you can click through on a collection, you can click through on an address, and then ultimately end up at individual transactions, right? Which is this unique feature of blockchains, that you get that full resolution. And I think we are the best product in terms of being able to see what's happening at any scale.
That's super cool.
That's amazing. And you tweeted out just yesterday, there's a God mode version of it, and you can actually look at the dashboard and see the actual royalties earned by each collection.
Correct.
I thought was
this is a new feature, actually. Yeah, that's a new feature we have.
Talk a little bit about that, like, because I don't think royalties are as big anymore, but you can still track it over time. Is this what it? Because I saw you did Bored Apes earned about 58 million, Azuki's earned 43. This is over the whole time of its existence, or is it like a specific time?
Yeah. No, that's correct. You can see how it's evolved over time, and it is pretty interesting, like you point out, because royalties used to actually be really high, right? Yeah. And then you had different marketplaces like Blur, LooksRare, and so on that came in and sort of challenged a bit of the monopoly that OpenSea had for a long time. And I think it made people think differently about royalties in NFT collections. So, if you look at a collection like Bored Ape or Bored Ape Yacht Club or Azuki, you can actually see how the effective royalty rate has come down quite a lot, because it used to be very high. And then it used to say, if I go on Bored Apes and I look at, it was sitting at roughly like 2.5%, right? Because it was mostly going through OpenSea and they had that fixed rate. And since then it has come down dramatically. So there's definitely been an evolution there, and you can see how much they've earned. You can see which marketplaces have generated the most royalties, and you can also see in different ways like how what are the top collections that have generated the most royalties. So I think like, you know, nothing is black or white in the royalty discussion. Like some people were saying it's going to disappear completely. I don't think that's necessarily true.
Interesting.
But also, you know, it probably didn't make sense to have them be as high as they were in the beginning.
Oh, that's okay. I want to dive into that comment as well. But just quickly, I see your Twitter profile picture is of a pudgy penguin. We had Luca on a couple episodes ago. So what's your you love the pudgies, or what's your affiliation there?
Yeah, I love the pudgies. I am now an advisor to the project too, but initially it was more just an informal love for the penguins. I like to talk about the 3 C's when it comes to pudgy penguins. They're cute, they have an amazing community, and they also create really good content. And especially on that latter point, they've been really smart using like Giphy. They have, I think, the biggest Instagram of any NFT collection.
That's right. Yeah.
So Luca, you know, if you've had him on the show, so you know that he's an amazing builder. And yeah, I really like him. I really like the team. The penguins are cute. The community is awesome, and they have great content. So that's why I like it.
Okay, interesting. Great. Okay, let's go back to being based in Asia and building Nansen out there. So, pandemic really did shuffle a lot of people around. A lot of people from Hong Kong, even China, mainland China, all moved to Singapore, Dubai, things like that. You're in Singapore. I don't think Karen and I have not been down there yet. I know Ray hasn't been down there since the pandemic. We're excited to come down to see you guys for Token 2049. But what's the vibe going on there? You know, for builders, is like a thriving ecosystem down there? Do you guys do a lot of meetups? Or I know you're probably heads down working on your own project, but I mean, you must see a lot of buzz going around. What discussions, you know, emails for invites for meetups and things like that. What's the vibe right now in Singapore?
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting since I moved here, because when I moved here, one of the reasons I came to Singapore was that I thought that it could potentially be kind of the #1 crypto hub in the world. Then, you know, we went through 2022, which was a disaster for the whole crypto space. And I think actually in particular, Singapore took a real beating. You know, we had 3 Arrows Capital registered here. We had Do Kwon was based here. You know, I met him several times. And that's kind of a story like in its own. I think if I'm being like totally honest, I think he's actually a much better guy than he's been portrayed at. And I think a lot of people suffered, which was unfortunate, but I think it's quite different from, say, like the Sam Bankman-Fried story and all that stuff. We also had a company called Hodlnaut, which was kind of a Singaporean BlockFi that put most of their money into Terra and Anchor, and lost a ton of money. We could see that on chain actually, and I reached out to the CEO to say, "What the hell are you guys doing? Like this is not good." And then 3 months later, they announced that they were insolvent. So anyway, like there was kind of a pretty bad time actually for us last year in Singapore. But it's interesting because the last few months, I feel like the Singapore crypto scene has really come to life again. And it struck me, especially like you were saying with these IRL events, meetups, it struck me how many great people there are here, and the density of crypto talent that's in Singapore is quite astonishing actually. And it's a combination of companies that are kind of headquartered here or based here, like Nansen is. And you also have like Ribbon Finance is here. Actually, Axie Infinity and Sky Mavis team is incorporated here. They have some folks here as well. You know, Pendle Finance. I think Kyber might be incorporated here. They have some people here as well, and many other companies. It's a combination of that and also the kind of the biggest names, you know, that we all know: Coinbase, Binance, Fireblocks, Gemini, Crypto.com. Actually, Crypto.com is headquartered here. So you have a really strong mix of both kind of local and companies that are primarily in Singapore, and also the ones that just have a really strong presence here and are kind of investing into Southeast Asia or APAC more broadly. And so we're actually building out this kind of builder ecosystem map right now, where we are trying to get everyone on kind of one infographic that shows all the great crypto companies that are in Singapore. So there's this concept that the placeholder VC co-founder Bernisky, I forgot his first name, Chris Bernisky, has described in his book, I think it's called Crypto Assets, that book. It's a pretty good book, actually. He talks about how many companies follow like a J curve, or many crypto assets, where if you literally imagine kind of almost like the Nike swoosh, right?
Yeah.
They start out like high when they launch on an exchange, and then they tank. But at some point, it starts growing like big time again, which has happened with many crypto assets. I think Singapore is like following a similar trajectory, actually. Like I was super bullish when I moved here. Then there was a lot of pessimism because of all the bad things that happened. And now I think we're getting up to that productive plateau. And I hope that Singapore will be one of the big crypto hubs in the world.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. And then we just mentioned offline, it's like, it's not so much that it's Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai as the main hub. It's just like there's three major cities out here in Asia that are competing against each other, whereas the US is like kicking everybody out. And I don't know what's going on in Europe as well. So I feel like Asia is like a really good place. Why do you think, besides the regulations, that Asia is like the place to be to build in Web3?
Yeah, just to follow up on what you said there as well before, I think there is a risk to fall into this kind of tribalist mindset of like, hey, we are Singapore, you guys are Hong Kong, you guys are Dubai, and everyone's going to say which one is the best. But at the end of the day, it's actually better to have multiple really strong contenders. And crypto is, of course, about decentralization. You don't want to have like one Silicon Valley equivalent. You want to have multiple different places. And why Asia? I mean, there are a few interesting things to consider about Asia. I think one thing is just you have a ton of people in Asia, right? That's just the first thing to consider. The second thing is I think the culture is very different in many ways compared to, especially Europe, where I'm from, but I think also different from the US. If you compare it to Europe, I often think about how Europe, on the one hand, is amazing with all its kind of history and architecture, and at least from kind of the recent history, let's say. But that's also kind of a legacy that is holding you back to some extent, because actually, in very concrete terms, you literally cannot build new, say, properties in many European cities because there's too much like history they want to preserve. So there's no more space, and then there's a housing issue, and I think that's kind of a physical representation of the mindset as well, that there's much more looking back and trying to preserve history, and not so much looking forward and trying to create new things. In Asia, I see this very visually around me, where there's like construction going on all the time. They're more comfortable like tearing down a building and then building up something new instead. And I'm not saying one is objectively speaking better than the other. I think there are trade-offs, there are pros and cons, but I think the Asian culture is more forward-looking and more okay to sort of tear down what you have now and try to build something new. And so that resonates with my personality. I think I'm naturally very future-oriented, and I like being places where people are trying to constantly improve things and innovate and create new things. So in terms of Europe versus Asia, I think that's a major difference. I think one other difference, if you think about the US versus Asia, is it seems to me that there's kind of, in the US, there are a lot of issues related to politics, where people get very caught up in, are you like a Democrat or Republican? In many Asian countries, like, people don't talk about politics,
Right.
They just want to kind of get on with their daily lives, and they realize that at the end of the day, the way you make your life better is, hard work and kind of making the best of the cards you're dealt, and so on. So there seems to be less focus on like politics, which feels like on the one hand like a major distraction in the US, also from a cultural perspective, where people are very, they're very preoccupied with certain issues that are too big for them to actually solve on their own, Whereas
Yeah.
in Asia, you just kind of have this hustle mentality and just, do what you can. So I think culture is a big part of it, which is a long topic on its own, but I think I'll stop there.
Yeah, it's great. Karen, why don't you, if you have a question, why don't you ask Alex
Yeah.
before we bring on Ray?
Yeah, I mean, what are you most excited about, like the Web3 future or the NFT future? Like, as you are seeing all these stats, what makes you, excited about this year, looking into the future?
Yeah, like Nanson's like a magic crystal ball, right? You must be able to see
Yeah.
a lot of trends coming up.
I mean, there are a few things. So one thing that I've been saying for a while now, but I think we're getting pretty close, is that we are going to enter this kind of Web3 gaming season. In the next, if you just think about it mechanically, if you raised money in 2021 to build a Web3 game, it's going to take you some time to actually build the game. And so now we're getting close to that point where the games are getting ready for like beta releases and taking folks on. So in the next few months, I'm very certain that we're going to see lots of games. I'm less certain that they will all be amazing, but hopefully a handful of them will be really good. That's one thing I'm excited about. And then generally, I'm excited I think the optimistic take on regulations and everything happening in the US is that if you get regulatory clarity, that's actually going to bring a lot of liquidity and capital into the sector. It might not look exactly like Pudgy Penguins and Captains and Bored Apes mooning. It could be more going back to kind of the DeFi products that were really big in 2020 and are still very, very, young, right? And so I think that's the other part that I'm excited about, that if we get a bit more regulatory clarity, I think you'll have much more participants being able to come into the Web3 and crypto sector.
Great. Ray Chan joining us from his home in Hong Kong. Ray,
Hi, Ray.
questions for Alex.
That's where I am. Yeah, I always stay at home. I'm like an otaku. Yeah, yeah. So good morning, Alex, right, GM. I follow you on Twitter, right? You haven't followed me. I'm very sad. but
I'm gonna follow you back now.
On your bio, right? You mentioned that you are a definite optimist, right? I know what it means. But can you share what it means to our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can kind of think of the world this is actually a concept from Peter Thiel in his book 0 to 1. So you can think of the world in kind of a 2x2 matrix. Like on one side, you have pessimism versus optimism. And on the other side, you have, actually, I can't remember exactly the terms he uses, but basically the concept is that you can think of the world in definitive terms, in the sense that it will happen by itself, or you can actually influence it. And so the concept of being a definite optimist is basically that you're optimistic about the future, but you're only optimistic because you believe that hard work will create that positive future, right? So some people are optimistic in the sense that the future will be bright regardless of what I do. And I don't believe that's the case. Like, I think the future could be pretty dark, actually, if you don't work for it to be a bright future. And then you can also be pessimistic and say there's nothing I can do about the future, right? Or you can think that, the future is going to be really bad, but you can try to influence it in different ways, which would be more like a definite pessimist or something. So I think, the future is bright, but you have to work hard for it.
Cool. I think one thing that is interesting about data, right, is most of the time what people say is actually what's not happening. Right? I think, for example, like these days when we look at the news, when we look at Twitter, right, it feels like the world is burning, right? There are wars and shit, and then there are COVID and stuff like that, right? But I think one book that I like is called Factfulness. Right? It talks about data and how the world is actually not what people see these days, right? It's actually the safest ever, right? There are, I think, people actually live much longer. There are fewer babies dying, right? And basically, most of the things that we feel like this is the end of the world is actually never really kills the world, right? So I feel like if people actually look at data more, they probably have a better understanding of what the world is actually doing these days, right? And for me, for you, right, as a founder of a very data focused product, right? What are the things that you feel like, okay, data still can't solve it, right?
Oh, that's interesting. There are many things you can't solve with data. So actually, if you think about it from like a company perspective, maybe because I am kind of I am a bit of a workaholic, and I'm sure you are too, right?
No, I'm
I
very
often,
lazy.
So I think about like for my team, for example, to make good decisions, like what do we have to equip them with? Data obviously is one of the things, but the two other things are values or a culture and strategy, because you can have the same data in front of you, but you can make different strategic choices. And so this is, I think, somewhat analogous to life more broadly as well, that you have to choose what is your strategy. You can have two different strategies that are both totally reasonable, but they are different strategies. For example, you can be a company that wants to compete on having the cheapest product, or you can be a company that focuses on having the highest quality, right? But it's really hard to do both at the same time, but both are perfectly reasonable strategies to pursue. And then in terms of values too, do you want to be a company that is very transparent, or do you want a company that is more secretive, right? These are value based things that you can't really answer with data. There are more choices you have to make. And I think it's similar with your personal life. You have to have, to some extent, like political values that you, in some cases, you can look at data to make political choices, like what actually just works better. For example, I mean, I don't want to get too much into the politics area, but if you think about like the history of capitalism, it seems to work better than communism in terms of making people more prosperous and things like that. So I think like values / culture and strategy are two big buckets that you can't really answer with data on its own. You have to make choices.
Got it. Yeah, and yeah, totally, right? I think at the end of the day, data is kind of like it's kind of like the result, right? Because there is data, right? After something happened, right? Of course, we can rely on data to predict the future, right? But at the end of the day, I think there are still many things that is like kind of like a surprise and kind of like things that is not foreseeable, right? With data, right? Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think there are a lot of I would say superstitions, right, about data, right? As a data guy yourself, right? Data driven or data informed.
Yeah, I was gonna say like my wife, who's Chinese, like she sometimes talks about feng shui, and
yeah, you are a smart guy. Yeah, you have a Chinese wife.
So maybe like I do some. I think I get a little bit influenced by her thinking about feng shui and like, we need to have better feng shui in our office or in our house and so on.
But do you think is like data informed or data driven when you tell people that okay, you have to?
Oh yeah. No, you have to be data informed. Like you can't, like data driven is kind of silly in the sense that, like we just talked about, that you have to have a strategy, you have to have certain values. The data can't instruct you what to do. You have to instead consult the data and be informed to make decisions, right? You can't let the data drive what you do. So absolutely, like it has to be data informed, not data driven. Also, like, one thing I was thinking of when you were asking that question, there's a lot to be said about intuition too, right? Humans develop intuition, although you could argue that is a form of data too, because you build up intuition after experience, and experience is data. But so, if you're a CEO or if you're a leader or anyone who makes decisions, you can't just discard your intuition, because intuition is very valuable. And so that's the other aspect. Like you can't be like 100% data driven, because it misses out on strategy, on values, and also intuition. If you just do that, you have to be informed by the data.
Great. Yeah, I think I have so many questions, right? Because at the end of the day, I think Web3 opens a lot of new opportunities, and a lot of the opportunities are actually on chain. That's why you can see things much more clearly, right, than other industry. I think for Web3 alone, right, you mentioned that you believe, there will be more games releasing, right, and then maybe GameFi, maybe the related sectors, right, will have a pretty good, at least more attention, right, if not more more resources or funding, right? But what are the other areas that you believe that, okay, with crypto, with Web3, they can really disrupt the industry in certain way?
I mean, I'm kind of a maximalist of tokenization in the sense that I think if you look at like 15 years into the future, it would be strange to me if we haven't like tokenized pretty much any asset, because it is just a better way to keep track of like who owns what, and also it gives you access to certain financial products and collateralization and so on that is very inconvenient. So in that sense, I think of crypto and Web3 in very broad terms. Actually, like anything that involves ownership is a good fit for blockchains and Web3. But the thing that's holding us back in many fronts is actually regulation. Like if I could tokenize, my property and like fractionalize it and whatnot, I'd probably do it, and many other people would do that as well, because it would be amazing if you could take like a fraction of your property and collateralize it and like borrow against it, or and so many other things, right? Similarly, if I could buy a piece of my favorite album, like Michael Jackson's Thriller or something like that, I would absolutely do that. But it's not solved because the music industry is super old-fashioned. You can't really get royalties paid out because maybe then it's a security and Gary Gensler is going to come knocking on your door. And so there are lots of regulatory issues holding us back. But if you just go back to the fundamentals and the first principles, I genuinely believe that anything that has to do with ownership is going to be solved by blockchains. It's the best technology we have for that. So yeah, like music, property, real world assets, and of course all sorts of digital assets, NFTs, PFPs, gaming assets. I'm really a maximalist when it comes to thinking about what tokenization can solve when it comes to ownership.
Got it. I have one more question, right, before passing the mic back to you, Casey. I mean, there are quite many data related products in the market. Yeah, because I think most of the teams who actually understand Web3 knows that, okay, there are so many on-chain activities that people can analyze, right? So, for example, in the past, maybe like NFT Inspect and then Origins, right? I think they offer, I wouldn't say similar, right? Because I think your product is actually much more, I would say, powerful, right? But there are other products out there, and then some of them they got shut down, some of them they got sold, right? And even your company, right? You guys have to did a layoff some time ago. I mean, it's always tough, right? Why, right? If blockchain is the future, right? If data is actually the all-seeing crystal ball, right? How come companies, right, in the space actually suffer?
That's a good question. I think in the short term, they suffer for a very simple reason, that their customers have much lower purchasing power now than they had 2 years ago. So it was pretty cheap for you to pay up maybe, let's say $100. Like that was like less than the gas cost of minting an NFT in 2021. But it's much more expensive now, right? And so that's the purchasing power of your existing customers has actually gone down quite a lot. The other thing is that many of them just took a break, right? So the total addressable market in that sense, like has gone down in the short term. But I think those are like, as I said before, I'm a real believer in that, everything that has to do with ownership will be tokenized like in the next 10, 15 years or so. But on the way there, it's going to go up and down. And, you have to deal with things like cash flow issues, paying people's salaries, and like managing your costs on that journey. So I think first of all, I think it's a good thing that you get lots of different alternatives for people in terms, this shouldn't just be like nonsense to do analytics. There should be multiple different products for different segments, different niches. I think where we want to position ourselves though, is that we are the product that is the most integrated, where you can do the most things in one place. Like I was talking about earlier, we have full resolution, and we're actually launching Nansen 2 in a couple of months, which will make this even more integrated. So that's one thing. The other thing is we want to be the most powerful product in the sense that you can just do much more with it. It's faster than anything else, which Nansen 2 will be. And also, you want to make sure that you have really, really good, support and customer servicing and so on. Very often with crypto products, they're built by like 2-3 devs, and you're kind of on your own. Like if you use them, they can be great, but if something breaks down, there's no one there to talk to. And we actually want to make sure that you have a great customer experience, like end to end, working with us. So, in terms of our strategy in that sense, what we try to do is kind of elevate ourselves up to be the Nike. Like there are many people making shoes, but like everyone knows Nike. There are many people making smartphones, but everyone knows Apple. We want Nansen to be the similar product leader because people know that we have super high quality, we have the best product on the market, and we continuously will fight to stay ahead of the competition.
Casey.
Yep, that's cool. We know we got to let you go soon, so we need some alpha drop. You just said something about Nansen 2. Talk a little bit about that and how it might help the builders going forward using Nansen.
Yeah, I'm going to hold back a little bit on this because we're actually going to do the launch when you guys are in Singapore for Token 2049,
Okay.
where I'll actually do the full launch announcement, and it's going to be really fun. But like I was saying earlier, there's some kind of principles that we can think about. And many of these things, you can group them into 2 buckets. Like one thing has to do with just the user experience and how Nansen 1 was kind of lacking, and it had some pain points for users that we want to address. That's one thing. And the other thing is just some completely brand new features that are going to make Nansen 2 just a much better product than anything that exists in the world. So in terms of the user experience, we've rebuilt the whole tech stack so that it's much faster. That means the dashboards literally load like 100 times faster than did in V1. And that allows you to get much more flow when you're doing investigations, when you're trying to analyze something, because you can jump between dashboards and so on. But this notion of like faster and easier to use is not just about dashboards loading fast. It's also about how you interact with the product. So we're going to have the best search for anything on-chain, on Earth. And it's super snappy. You can punch in like anything you want to find information about, and it just takes you there super fast. You have hotkeys that just makes the experience much better to use and so on, instead of having to click around with the mouse. So the first point is like it's faster and easier to use. The second part is that it's integrated. So we're going to actually merge our portfolio tracking product, which is called portfolio.nansen.ai, and it supports more than 40 different chains that you can track in one place. We're going to merge that with our analytics product. So that allows us to do things like personalized insights based on your holdings. You just connect your wallet, and now suddenly you'll see NFTs and tokens that are tailored to you because of what you have already purchased in the past, which is super exciting. And then if you think about some of the newer features, the keyword here, of course, it is a buzzword right now, but AI is going to be a big part of this. So we're going to have some new features that are powered by AI, and they're just going to make your life a lot easier in terms of personalizing the product more, creating your own wallet segments, creating your own lists, creating your own dashboards. Like all these different things will be a lot easier in Nansen 2. So like as a user, this is the most excited I've been about anything on the product side since like the Nintendo 64. I think it's going to be amazing.
You are old. Yeah.
Yeah,
You remember Nintendo 64. You're old.
Yeah, I'm pretty old. But yeah, so as a user, I'm just excited to see where this is going over the next few months. And then, it's going to be super fun at Token 2049 to announce this more in detail.
I think the portfolio and analytics merge, right? I think you just mentioned that. Okay, you can check out what I'm holding, right, and then maybe do some recommendation. Right? I wish that when the gens use your tool, you recommend them not to buy NFTs. Yeah, I think that would be the smartest choice. Yeah, no NFT. That would be the best recommendation.
Oh man,
something like that, right? I think. I feel like, yeah. So, sorry, go ahead.
No,
that investment advice.
Yeah, not investment advice. I mean, like in 2021, that would have been like terrible advice, right? But like, maybe it would have been good advice last year.
Yeah, I feel one thing that when I check out Nansen, right, it gives me a very similar vibe when checking with the Bloomberg terminal. right? I think
Yep.
I think that's I don't know whether this is like your product in mind, right? But I work at a TV station. I think when I first graduated, right, and then the first time I used a Bloomberg terminal, it's like so crazy. You can check all kind of shit right on the terminal. You can even check a horoscope right on the Bloomberg terminal. Right? I mean, the screen is just like a dark low res screen and stuff, right? But it's like so powerful, right? And then we had to go to a training center and then to learn how the hotkeys and stuff like that, because they have so many features that you just can't use it by yourself, right? I mean, for you guys, is that your future vision for the product, right? Because for Bloomberg, at least for the Bloomberg terminal product, right, it's mainly for the pro, also for the corporate and stuff, right? Is that your main direction going forward?
It's a great question. It's something I get asked quite a lot, and definitely Bloomberg is one of our inspirations. But I think there are some very notable differences. The first one, like you were alluding to at the end there, is that we want to make Nansen way more accessible than a Bloomberg terminal, right? Just in terms of pricing, and that's a trend that we are on. I actually think about this, like the pricing strategy and so on of Nansen. I think of this as kind of also analogous to Tesla. They started out making the Roadster, which was not cheap. It was expensive, but they didn't have enough scale to like mass market or mass produce a car for the mass market. And so they built the Roadster. They took the technology and the learnings from that, and then they built the Model S, which was more accessible. And I think we are like, that's kind of how we're building Nansen too. Like the first product was kind of inaccessible for a lot of people, but we are taking the learnings and the technology and we're going to make it more accessible in Nansen 2, while at the same time making it extremely powerful for like the power users and the enthusiasts. And so the other thing with Bloomberg that's different, of course, is that Bloomberg is not Web3, so it doesn't really allow you to do a lot of the transactional stuff within the product. I think there is potentially a future for Nansen where we actually hook into, the blockchain itself, and you can make transactions with Nansen. That is something I'm saying as potential, because it's not something we're going to do in the near term. But that door is open to us, and it's not feasible to do that with Bloomberg. They're basically limited to being an information platform only forever.
Great. Alex, I know you got to go. We're going to let you go now so you don't miss your next meeting. Thanks so much for being in the show. We learned a lot from you.
Thank you so much.
We're definitely going to follow more of your stuff, and we'll see you in Singapore very, very soon.
Yeah, see you soon. Great chatting with you all. And I also follow you on Twitter now, Ray. So great to meet you as well.
Yeah, one more followers. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Alex. Yeah. See you soon.
Thanks so much, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting stuff there. Before we get into the next segment, I was just reading, while you were talking to him, I was reading some of the stuff on his website. They have like a NFT or Web3 like digest of stuff. And I guess the big news that came out this week from Hong Kong was the Web3 task force. Ray, are you on the Web3 task force?
No, I'm a small potato, but Yet is on it, right? So I feel like the task force, I don't know other guys in the team, right? But only I know Yet, right? So I think there are some other guys that I also know, right? But at least Yet is there. So I feel like at least they find the most important person in the industry in Hong Kong to join it. Right? So that's a good start. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just in case you didn't hear that, the financial secretary of Hong Kong assembled 15 non-official members. These are people that are like university professors, government officials, financial regulators, and of course, Animoca Brands president Yatsu on the thing. We'll get him on this show in the near future. Hopefully, we'll get him live in Hong Kong when he hopefully sails back into Hong Kong and talk to us more about what's happening there. Anyways, let's get on to the next segment of the show, Karen.
Yeah. So we have a meme coin codes giveaway last week, and we have selected 69 winners for the giveaway. So you should have received the code via DM. So please claim your waitlist on our official meme coin website. So don't click any suspicious link. But we also asked people, what are you most excited about NFT's future? And we have some great answers. Jay is live said the most exciting thing is that NFT will soon play an important role in the global economy. And Ichi Oda Opu say, I'm also excited for NFTs to bring communities together through Web3 technology, and that's a fast development across the board. Raven P said, many people are excited about the possibility NFT offers, such as enabling artists to directly monetize their digital creations, revolutionize the concept of ownership, and providing new revenues for creative expression and collaboration. So thank you so much for all the great answers, and and keep an eye out, like just to stay tuned and see if we have more giveaways coming up.
Yeah,
I love
I
it.
think the meme coin, no, the waitlist code giveaway. I think we probably will end it very soon, right? Because we are moving to the next step, right? That's why we will stop the waitlist code. If you have it, just try to claim it first and then give it to your friends. Right? I mean, as we mentioned the very first beginning, right? It's not for sale, right? It's supposedly it's not for sale, right? I mean, if you sell it, of course we can't really stop you, right? But actually, what we want to do is we want it to be like to invite your friends, so that okay, when MemeCon was launched, it's launched, right? So somehow you will see that okay, there are more participants in the whole ecosystem, right? So that they have a chance to join, to understand what NFT, what crypto is, right? So I think that's the goal, right? But we will be moving on to the next stage very soon. Yeah. So I think if you have a cook, if you have some cooks, just
Please
use
claim
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Great.
when, Ray?
Yeah. Soon,
Okay,
Karen.
soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you guys had enough. We're busy enough this week with the captain's reveal. I think you deserve a little bit of a break.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? I mean, anytime we have something big happening at Memeland, right? I think the market will crash. It's almost like it's not a
It's a
joke
curse.
anymore. It's almost like a curse, right? I think because okay, when we planning for the review, and then I thought, okay, it's pretty good, right? I think crypto market is like climbing up and stuff. Okay, then Azuki, right, Elemental review, and then people don't like it, right? And then it creates the ripple effect that affects a lot of other collections, right, and stuff like that, right? So it's always kind of like that, right? But before we talk about Captain's review, I think one thing that Alex mentioned, which is quite interesting to me, is I had dinner with Karen and also some of our investors yesterday night, right?
Yeah.
And then they mentioned that they were traders before, but they don't really have sleep, right? They only have sleep 3 to 4 hours every day for 1.5 years, right? And then that's how they feel like, okay, this, although there is a lot of money in trading, right? But they want to become like an investor, right? So that they become like a VC, try to invest in companies and stuff, because it would be better to have some sleep, right? Because no matter how much money that you have, right, sleep is still very important. I think at the beginning of the dinner, we cheers for having more sleep, right? And I feel
more
like
sleep.
I feel like in when Alex mentioned, I forgot what exactly he said. I think he mentioned something about sleep and stuff, and then I just feel like, okay, I think at the end of the day, Web3 is revolutionary, but it doesn't mean that this should take away or eat up all of our time, right? It's part of the job, part of the tech, right? But I think we still have family, we still have friends, right? I think we have to understand that in order not to become crazy. I think why so many people in NFT, when you check their Twitter, right, it feels like they're just crazy person, right? It's just because they over invested, right? They over leverage, right? That's why they can't live a life because they feel like, okay, if this fuck up, I'm fucked, right? So they are so angry at everything. Right? I'm not saying that I don't care. I still care a lot, but I know that this is not the end of the world, right? Yeah, I only invest what I'm able to I can afford to lose. I think in Web3 or in any new sector, which is higher risk, I think we have to understand that before we do any investment. Otherwise, it will be very, very harmful to our mental health and also to our physical health. Yeah, Casey.
Amazing. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you,
That's
Ray.
it. Thanks, Ray. We'll see you next week. We're bringing the Crypto Kongs on next week, so we'll see you back here for next week's show. We're going to listen to our sponsor before we end the show.
Our sponsor today.
Today's show is not sponsored by Durex. At Durex, we've been making condoms, lubes, and sex toys for over 80 years, so we know what we're talking about. I'm not Mando. This is the way.
Thanks, Mando. Obviously,
Mando
that's not
Warrior.
really our sponsor, but we talk about condoms a lot, by the way. But if you're interested in sponsoring the show, please let us know, and we'll read your message in a special way, in a very creative voice generator. So yeah, thank you for joining the show today, and that's it for the show.
So we don't have any more codes. Is that right?
Yeah, well, but I guess people are still asking.
Okay. Okay. So if they're still asking, then we're going to sign off with
Give me
the
codes.
last one. We're playing this song, right?
Give me codes.
Give me the goddamn codes.
You can download this song on Spotify. This is Karen's masterpiece for
Yeah.
now. Next week, you hope to have a new song.
Give me the codes. Give me codes.
Right. So the GM show is broadcasting live every Thursday morning, 9 a.m.
Codes.
Hong Kong time. And we are also streaming live here on YouTube. Are we on Twitch still? We are on Twitch?
We are.
Okay, great. And then when I get around to it, I'll edit them and put them on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and other kind of podcast apps you might like, since a lot of some viewers are sleeping right now. And we have a lot of people saying this is the GN show for them around in Europe. So we definitely want to make sure that they are able to hear the show. So thanks a lot to Alex and Nansen this week. I thought we learned a lot. It was great to hear from him in Singapore, what's going on. And so stay tuned to the GM show official Twitter account so that you can see what the polls are and who the guest is next week. Karen, have a great rest of your day, and we'll
Have a
talk to you
great
next week.
day. See you next week.